Hey kids, howdy, and welcome once again to Conscious Embodiment, Astrology and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. We made it through the turn of the year. It's January 5th. This episode covers January 5th through January 11th, and here we are.
Dare I say Happy New Year again? I don't know.
That's right, 2026.
I feel the spirit for at least the first month.
And listen, kids, I know it's like a year ahead that I have and other astrologers have been sort of warning about how intense it's going to be. This is a good moment and a good week to talk about resilience, our fortitude. Everybody's in Capricorn getting, sort of ready for a new moon that's coming. Capricorn is that energy that allows us to start the year from a place of structure, Saturn ruled, but also vantage point, the mountaintop. The goat climbs up and sees the lay of the land, right? So we'll talk about that a little bit when we get into the astrology for the week, but I wanted to start with our question. Back a bunch of weeks, I did a kind of a rapid fire question answer. With me, it's never rapid, right? It's like, you put a quarter in and my mouth won't stop, but quicker questions that I answered. And I stopped when I got to these two last questions because they represent an answer that's going to be a lot, more verbose. I will do my best because we actually are talking about something that's one of those elements of astrology that are really valuable for nuance and layers of understanding, but it's mathy. So I want to be mindful of how I describe this. So let's start with the questions. Denise writes a question that sort of sparked this. I don't quite understand everything that she said. What she says is there are different decans in each sign. Does that mean there are lives you get, lessons to learn? It makes sense. Oh, if it makes sense, make it make sense. Okay. Okay. Love your reels, she says. And then Ginny sort of had a similar question, a brief explanation of decans and why air quotes cusps aren't really, they're not real the way many people think. Decans refers to deca, 10, the root word of deca. So every sign is 30 degrees wide, and they're symmetrical. Each 10-degree pie piece is a decan. So 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30 are the three decans in the 30-degree sign. So most people understand the signs to some extent. Some people know a little bit more, know what planet rules a sign, and the archetypal meaning is, it matches, it makes sense. I'm a Leo sun, ruled by the sun. But the three decans give sub-rulers, like hyphenate rulers, for the first 10, second 10, or third 10. Is this simple enough so far, Zoe?
Yes, there are other rulers.
There's an order of how they line up. It's based on the classical planets only and the slower to faster orbits. That should sound familiar to y'all. Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon. So the first decan is ruled by Mars because of Aries ruled by Mars, and the first 10 is sub-Mars, Mars. Second 10 is Mars because it's Aries, but the Sun gives the nuance to the middle. Now, if you were born with your Aries sun from 21 to 30, that sub-ruler is Venus because the order has stayed the same. Then when we move to the next sign, it's going to be Mercury, Moon, and back to Saturn. I'm not going to explain that anymore because there's nothing I could do with my words that would get you to see this. If this is interesting to you, when you look at a chart of how this is laid out, which you can find very easily online, it will make sense because you'll see how the order sort of repeats. I'm going to use myself as a bit of an example to describe both the decans and something else that we're about to look at that's even smaller in nuance than decans. I am a Leo sun. My Leo sun is at 2957 of Leo, the 30th degree. My Venus is at 2818 of Leo, right up next to them. That last decan of Leo is subruled by Mars. So the value of that is me as business owner, me as a man in a body who likes to be at the center of attention to deliver, wisdom. That makes sense. So if I were born in the first or second decan, I'd have to use those rulers for the nuance, but Mars makes sense for who I am, way more than Saturn or Jupiter, which would be the first and second. So your sun is Aquarius in the third decan as well, and that's a subrulership by the moon. Aquarius is all about being of service in a unique and new way. Now, that describes you completely. But the subrulership of the moon is what sort of describes your need to serve the underdog and to be sort of connected to what groups need at a deeper level, right? So in your teaching, it's about, the needs of the collective within the uniqueness of you teaching Chinese music. Sorry if I'm outing you as a...
I was like, I wonder if people know that. Like,
Yeah, I don't
they
think
know
they
that I
do.
do music, but
And, from other cultures. Something that I recently discovered for the first time, and frankly, I'm having a little bit of a conundrum about whether or not I shared about the Dawads on this podcast.
I've heard that word.
Yeah, I think we
not
might
often,
have.
Not often, but something rings a bell because that's an odd word.
I listened to the last 8 podcasts, and I didn't talk about them in the last
No,
8
not
weeks, as far as I
recently.
know.
No,
And I
no.
only discovered this recently. Okay, so the Dawads, D-W-A-D-S, which I had never heard of until about 3 weeks ago, are hyphenate subrulers that go 2.5 degrees. So that within the 30 degrees of a sign, there's a subruler sign for every couple of degrees. So what this allowed me to do, and I'm not going to go through all of the placements, but I was thinking about anger, as I often am. My biggest sort of shadow to always release is when impatience turns into anger, which is certainly part of my makeup, as well as the yummy, warm leadership. I have Mars in a horrible position because Mars in Libra is debilitated because it's peaceful till it's not. And then my Dwad rulership of 22 degrees Libra is like Mars. So it's like I already have a Mars problem. And then the Dwad said, oh, when you get angry, you get really fucking angry.
Yeah.
And then I noticed how much Cancer there was on other rulership places, which is my North Node. My whole life purpose has been to move away from control, being right, being, feeling like the smartest in the room, and wanting to make other people feel small so I could feel like I was higher on the mountain than they. But I'm here to put care, nurturance, safety around everything that comes out of my mind, out of my mouth, out of my heart, and out of my hands.
Mm-hmm.
And Cancer is a Dwad rulership of 3 or 4 different things in my chart. If this interests you, pretty helpful if you know your chart well enough. But you can, again, look this up and you can find various charts that show this and just put together the Dwad and or the decan of each of the placements, especially the personal planet ones, and you might receive some nuance like I did. I mean, this was small information, but it had a big impact on me recognizing why I'm here and what the work has always been and will continue to be. The new moon in Capricorn is over a week away. what's happening in that new moon is, I think, spectacular. It was a big topic on the Astro Overview for 2026, which, by the way, you can still get by recording. So head on over to michaellennox.com if you haven't yet. So in the third week of January, this new moon has everybody in Capricorn. Personal planets is everybody. So sun and moon, obviously, because it's a new moon, Mars and Mercury. And though Venus at the new moon will be in Aquarius, she will have just entered like the day before, right? So she was in Capricorn. She'll be in Capricorn the day before the new moon. And then, when we have the imprint moment, she's in Aquarius. So just a reminder that the personal planets have been hanging out together for months. I sort of clock the new moon at the end of October as the beginning of what we need to really pay attention to, where they were all hanging out in Scorpio, transformation, then they all moved together into Sagittarius, touching all of the outers along the way. And if you remember when things first started to move into Capricorn, I expressed that Cap is the one sign where once they've moved out of Sag, that they're not going to harsh the outer planets in the same way when they leave Sagittarius. What all that means is that October, November, December were intense for personal planet changes, which means we changed. And so those changes in mind, body, and heart that we've been going through since October, they coalesce in a level of integration that happens right in the middle of January in the sign of Capricorn, moments before that new moon. And this is the week that this all begins in earnest.
So will we have like revelations with that like integration coming together, or?
Actually, I think so.
Okay.
I mean, like the fact that you asked me that made me look at something that's happening on Thursday that does speak to awareness of movement, desires, vision connected to where we want to go. So that's in the week. And Mercury's also in Capricorn. So even though he's a little earlier in degree point this week, the fact that he's touching in with the collective point of past to future in the middle of this week as everybody's gathering in Capricorn, I'm going to say yes to that question. And the only reason I'm hesitating or fuffeting at all is just the Capricorn mansion isn't necessarily one of revelation, but of awareness that comes in a kind of deep, authoritative, grounded, teachery way. More than, ooh, I just realized. It'd be more like, oh, fuck, now I get it. Right? So more like that than the more fun version of like sudden inspiration.
Yeah.
But tomorrow, there's some possible sort of inspiration coming from the Sun and Venus in conjunction. The very next day, on Wednesday, Venus and Mars will conjunct in terms of like the actual exactness of it, around 17 degrees of Capricorn. So that means that as we move through the first couple of days of this week, our conscious awareness, and this is what's important, right? Because we've been through some shit. The moon downloads things into our unconscious, but it isn't until we are consciously aware of them that they become part of our awareness. So the sun connecting with Venus on Tuesday is like the heart saying, hey, this is what we've been up to emotionally, and here's what's shifted and changed in our emotional body. And then the very next day, masculine and feminine principle, Mars and Venus, the great lovers of the zodiac at the personal level, come together by conjunction. And that Congress is a beautiful moment every time they connect, every 2 years or so, of what we want to do and how we want to be coming into integration. The fact that it's right smack dab in the middle of a stellium of personal planets who've been hanging out for months in a new moon is a great boon to us. That means we're setting intentions in the most important intention setting moment for the whole year with awareness of what our heart has been through, what our bodies have been through, and what we want to now do. Emphasis on do, because Capricorn says, what do we want to do? What's the actions we're going to take? Then it's that Thursday sextile with the north node of the moon from much earlier in Capricorn by Mercury that sort of puts what I just described that the sun is doing and what I'm about to describe very much into our visionary sense of what we want to create in the year ahead. We do that with our minds. It's on Friday that the sun conjuncts Mars. And that's the day where we, with our conscious awareness, sort of connect to goals, ambitions, projects, what our doing consciousness is ready to do anew will be sort of downloaded into our awareness as we approach the weekend. Now, Friday is a pretty juicy day. As the sun and Mars come together by conjunction, giving us a kind of strong, solid sense of, the doing portion of things. You got Venus, who's also in the doing mansion of Capricorn. She's going to oppose Jupiter in Cancer. Now, that's really interesting to me, that while our awareness is having this opportunity to sort of expand and know the value and purpose of October, November, and December, like that's what's available this week. We can know the purpose of all of the shit we've just been through. But Venus tells us that there might be some emotional overwhelm connected to awarenesses that come this week or the responsibilities that your vision will demand of you. Venus is the emotional body, and an opposition is going to absolutely stir that something must occur. Now, the beauty of this opposition is it's Venus and Jupiter. It's, the old days we called these the benefics. So love and abundance they're having a confrontation. They might slap each other or do a dance, but the principles involved will be a sense of responsibility and how that feels, Venus and Capricorn, illuminating the value of your vision. The Jupiter's who makes the vision become something. But in Cancer, where he's exalted in manifestation consciousness, he's also touching into emotional overwhelm just by being the expander in the most sensitive sign. I think the best thing that is coming out of my mouth today about the Venus piece is responsibility can't be emotionally overwhelming. Right? So that transit, right? Yeah. When I did my first, rebirthing moment on a cranial sacral experience, and I went through my first breath for the first time since it happened the first time, and my first thought was, too much responsibility.
Yeah.
I do not. But we have the responsibility we have. We're in the season of responsibility. And I want all of y'all to allow Friday's emotional waves to help you find the balance of, yes, you might have a mighty hill to climb this year, but don't forget how much your body wants to be cared for and rested and, prepared always for the job ahead. So balance in all things is very much a theme of this week. What will make that harder on Friday is a little Mercury sesqui-square with Uranus, so that while we're in this deep traffic with Mars and Venus, the mind is going to be I got to get out of here. I feel too trapped by these, circumstances. Mercury touching the North Node is like, look where we're going. But Mercury agitating Uranus will be like, I want out of that contract. I need my freedom. Then we take that consciousness from Friday into the third quarter moon, which is Sunday. Third quarter moon means the next new moon is a week away, and we're in like the dark of the cycle that we're in. The moon phase at the quarter moon and beyond is called the disseminating moon. What that means is in that waning crescent, we are from gibbous to crescent, we are full of unconscious material that we will now be charged for, like showing up with the wisdom of the 3 weeks that preceded it. And the sun will be opposing Jupiter on Saturday while we're in this quarter moon. So, since this is why I started today talking about the new moon that's a week away from Saturday's quarter moon. Because the quarter moon crisis kind of says, are you ready to be in the world with the new wisdom that you've been acquiring? And I'm telling you that like this week has sort of a confronting relationship with the wisdom from October, November, and December. And Thursday, Friday, Saturday is very much about getting the lay of the land, sun, conscious awareness of where we're at both emotionally and physically, Venus and Mars, what our thoughts about the future are, and, the sextile of the North Node, and juicy, dicey feelings of like resistance or freedom. And then we wrap it up over the weekend with a sense of, am I ready? And let the answer be yes. Even if you gotta fake that and have at it.
Did you know that Michael has a daily astro alert? If you enjoy hearing the weekly astrology, you might like knowing more about each day. When you subscribe for the daily astro alerts, you'll get an in-depth explanation of the day's astrology sent right to your email. Subscriptions are only $10 a month, or you can purchase the yearly subscription at the reduced price of $100. To subscribe, head over to michaellennox.com. All right, it's dream segment time. Every week, Dr. Michael will interpret dreams that are sent in via email or take a live caller. If you would like your dream interpreted on the podcast, you can go ahead and email us at dreams@michaellennox.com. Hopefully your dream will make it onto the show.
This week we have Amra calling in from New York. Hey Amra, what you dreaming?
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, welcome.
So my dream, it was, just for context, it was a full moon, and
Love
I took a bath,
that.
and I was just saying my gratitude, kind of like thanking everything in my life and everyone, and just feeling just immense gratitude. And that morning or that night, I had this dream. There was a first part in the dream that was a bit kind of all over the place, but I don't remember it so much. But the part that I remember the most was this dream, and it starts with me and my mother are walking in a town, and it's the desert, but there are clear roads. And so there's dirt, and like the colors are golden and yellow. And we're walking, and there's some palm trees. They are date palm trees. And so she goes over to the date palms and starts picking the dates. And as I'm walking towards, I see a woman and a man. I don't know what they look like, but they're wearing like cloth from head to toe, like covering their face. It's a tan cloth. And I know that they're an older woman and a man somehow. They approach me and it's like a gentle approach. And they ask me about who died first, which grandmothers died first. And I tell them my mother's mom died and then my dad's mom died. And then they ask me about aunt's mother-in-law and when she died, and I tell them like in between. Then they offer me a stick to give to my cousin. And so we depart, we say goodbye. It's a nice encounter. And I'm curious, so I look into the stick. I open the stick as if it's like a jewelry box or something. Inside, it's like sticky dates, but also like tamarind seeds. It's very, like, I know it's sticky and I know it's sweet. And so I close it and I'm on my way. And I approach my mom near the date palm tree and I see three um, frog mouth birds sitting in this palm tree and they're yellow, like golden, in these big hay nests. And I like approach them and they're sort of head on, like eye view focus,
Right.
like
Hmm.
level. And I'm thinking, like, what do they have to say to me? And I just look at them and they have nothing to say, but they're like very much watching me. So I move on and I'm picking the dates with my mom, and I find this date that is a pine cone. It's like a fuzzy pine cone, but it's a date. And I look over to my mom and I'm like, oh, look, this is so weird and interesting. And that was the dream.
My.
Yeah.
I love the journey we're going on. So, just curious, what's your relationship with mom? Is she with us? I mean, I couldn't follow
She's
the
with
family
us.
tree,
Yes.
honey. It's like,
No,
you
it's
know, the
okay. It's
cousin and
okay.
the
Yeah,
sister
yeah,
and the
yeah,
mother and the
yeah.
aunts, and suddenly it's
Totally.
Gilbert and Sullivan, my sisters and my cousins and my aunts.
Yeah.
Okay, so mom is with us. And
Yes.
what's your relationship with her?
We're close. We're like very connected, like psychically connected. Yeah.
And what's her personal relationship with gratitude?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, she's a very compassionate person, I would say, like overly compassionate.
Overly compassionate. Okay.
Like she will give her everything to humanity. She's a therapist, and before that, she was like a social worker and worked with refugees. And we're actually refugees ourselves, so we came here from Bosnia during the war, and so she just dedicated her life to helping people. So
Okay.
I guess, yeah.
I got all that I need. So we also start with the waking life experience that there was a release going on, right? That's a full moon.
Mm,
So when the moon is full, the unconscious is wide open, and whatever's ready to fall out will plop out. And a bath is a great way to ritualize that. And gratitude is the lubrication for everything, right? So if we want more grace to handle life's hard turns, gratitude is the like putting oil in the machine that
mm,
becomes graceful movement. So we know then that the dream must connect to what needs to be released in your psyche that will allow, I can fill in the blank, a greater, better, a more organic, authentic, or healthier relationship with gratitude and how you love the world. But that also includes you love yourself first.
mm,
Mom exhibits a little bit of a selflessness lost, or no, that's not the right syntax. And I'm not talking about pathology. Your mother doesn't have to be like, ruined. I'm just talking about what the theme of the dream is. When asked, you provided a sense of like, yeah, it's too much, too much vulnerability. And in a moment like this on the planet, and being a refugee in where the fucking United States, right? You're carrying a lot of psyche of the present moment just because of who you are. I'm sort of talking all around things, but again, I'm spinning a yarn of like who you are so that we can needle into
mm,
this moment of release. So the moment of release is described by being in a very natural, organic place, right? You're not in urban New York. You're in something very earthy, very Gaian, with lovely golden yellow colors. That's, right? We don't have to go too far to know that we're talking about a kind of loveliness that's very much earthen or natural, right? So the man and the woman who are older, they feel like guides, right? There's a pair of them and they're different genders, so there's a wholeness there. They're covered because their bodies are not the point, right? We don't see anything about them because we don't need to. And that's your psyche's clever way of dressing them up in such a way that says their questions are the point. Okay, so now we get into the who died first and who I have to also tell you this.
Yeah.
The morning of this podcast recording, right? So a few hours ago, I was in this weird consideration of my maternal grandparents.
Whoa.
Because consciousness gets blurrier and blurrier. So it has to have something to do with your ancestral lineage and the gifts that come down through the ancestry, and also perhaps the challenges, the shadow of what comes down through ancestry. But that to me is the best thing I can do about the questions who are, about who died first and all that. Like I don't mean this literally, I mean this energetically. I stopped listening when it was the details, but I couldn't follow that. So that counts in how I'm hearing the dream, right? That wasn't me being bored for a moment. That's just what occurred in my receiving of the dream. But I know that we're talking about the lineage and what the gifts are, because then you're given the stick. The stick can do so many things. It can help you walk. It can point to things, a stick is like, Gaia's wand, right? So there's a lot of yummy feminine power in a stick, especially when it becomes something like a jewelry box, which suggests the gift. The gift at the nugget of the walk with mom connects to abundance, prosperity in the form of dates. Honey, there ain't nothing better than a date palm tree to symbolize the incredible bounty of the true feminine principle of Gaia herself. Right? Those are from the Fertile Crescent, and they rose up as, incredible sustenance. So when you see that your gift is that you see all of this abundance, all of these dates, I now have the seeds of something. But they're not date seeds. They're tamarind seeds. And what's surrounding them is what feels a little bit like gunk. Sticky date stuff, right? It didn't feel like you were describing it as something horrifying and yucky, but it isn't. It's antithetical to tamarind seed consciousness. To me, this represents the over-compassion, the over-sweetness, the over-trying to sort of care for everybody, feed everybody with something sweet. But the tamarind seed is the sort of dingo thing, that dingo bingo thing, like the point. So, I don't know a whole lot about tamarind fruit, but do you?
No, I don't.
Well, there's your assignment, because somehow if the dream has something to do with your relationship to abundance and care and what you need to let go of so you can be more effective with your gratitude. And then conversation with me and the dream details sort of bring us to this place of something needs to be released. It has to be the over-vulnerability that happens when you do care for what's going on out there in the world. Birds are messengers from the sky and the intellect, but frogs are amphibians, which means the frog-mouthed birds are like ideas that float around in the intellect, but that are also grounded in earthen reality and can go beneath the surface to more emotional contact, because frogs go down below. So you want to know what they have to say, but you don't need to. They're watching you. They're guides. And then you just go back to picking your dates with mom, back to like, oh, learned a thing or two. I'm different now. And then you find the pine cone. Pine cones grow trees that are green, the color of the heart chakra, and they are evergreen. So it's like planting something that will be ever centered in the heart, coming straight out of Mother Gaia.
That's so much to like unpack and feel and understand. Yeah.
It is a lot. I could feel it in the way that the journey was coming out of my mouth. So
Yeah. Wow.
beautiful dream.
Well, thank you. I'm gonna have to sit with this for a bit.
I encourage you to, and I would encourage you to do some real consideration on tamarind seed
Mm,
and pine cone, because those are the two consciousnesses in the dream that are something new for you to plant that will become future interesting abundance and gratitude.
incredible. Thank you.
Yay! You're so welcome.
Thank you for listening to Conscious Embodiment, Astrology and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. You can find us on Apple Music, the iHeartRadio app, and anywhere you find your favorite shows. Head on over to michaellennox.com for information on astrology readings, the daily Astro Alert subscription, upcoming classes, and to join the mailing list.